And welcome to SlushHeap 6. We are SlushHeap -1 tonight. Unfortunately, Darcy could not be with us tonight. Seems like she went to the wrong place and caught a bug. But Darcy, if you're watching us, we'll do the best we can without you. Okay? So, having said that, I want to remind you that we are part of Hangout10.com. Network, which is a network of shows like ours that bring you the best of everything, whether it be food, collectibles, you name it, it's out there, even forensic science. Just go to SlushHeap, I'm sorry, not SlushHeap. In this case, go to Hangout10, the numeral 10.com, and look at their calendar, and you'll see all the shows that are associated with Hangout10.com. So, tonight, we're going to do things a little different. Actually, we have a lot of firsts in a way. One is we only have one host instead of two. We have actually a new co-host. We recruited Toni Rakestraw. You remember him from previous shows, and he was really nice to accept, without any advance notice. So if he stumbles a little bit tonight, accept that. This is his first time, right? No, I'm kidding. I was on John's show the other night, and let me tell you something. Either we copied him or he's copying us because his show is great. I absolutely enjoyed it. He had some very good guests, and hopefully tonight we can, dazzle the audience with who we have. And
Rudy, I'm wondering, why didn't you do the whole bit with Beauty and the Beast? You did it for Darcy, and you don't do it for me?
Well, the thing is, there would have been two beasts tonight, and no Beauty.
No, we got Katie, we got Toni, so we got the Beauty. It's just two brutes, I guess, is what we said.
Yes, exactly. And the other new thing we're going to have tonight is I'm going to close the show a little different. Something that I wanted to do for a long time because we reinvent ourselves every night when we come here. We do something a little different, and it seems to work out. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go outside the box tonight when we close. And I'm going to try something. And if it works, then you know what? I'm going to continue it. And if it doesn't, I'm going to continue it anyhow. So it really makes no difference that way. So, John, I'll tell you what. I'll give you the job that Darcy normally has. If you would please tell the audience who we have tonight here.
Oh, well, sure. I'd be glad to do that. Well, let's see. Over in the wonderful corner there, we have Jim Alt, who is a wonderful guy. He's one of the friends of the show, and that's wonderful. And there by him is me, of course, and then right by there is my wife, Toni Rakestraw, who happens to be the editor extraordinaire. I guarantee you. This woman, she's kept me in line and edited a lot of things in my life. I know, she's amazing. And to keep me in line, that takes it. Plus, she's the mother of 8 children. 8 children. Yeah, so. And then we have Katie. Now, Katie, she is an amazing woman. This woman, she lives in Switzerland, but she's originally from the States. Is that true? Or
from Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah, cheese. And she went off to another area.
Another cheese country.
Yeah, right. I know.
Cheese and cows.
Yeah, I know. Cheese and cows. Yeah. So, and she's a writer of a young adult fiction. She's also part of a group of writers there. She has a whole group of people she works with, and she's like one of the big wigs with that. And she's just an amazing lady, and she's raising her 2 daughters, I believe you said. Yep. Yeah, 2 daughters, and she's a heck of a writer. So, and she's got her own blog, and she does all kinds of stuff. I think she runs Switzerland, isn't she like the Prime Minister of Switzerland? I think so. Don't they take turns? Was it just your turn? They came to the door.
Yeah. Every seven. There's 7 presidents, so I'm just waiting my turn.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So you're the 6th vice president.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
She just forgot to get out of the way when they were walking by. She didn't turn off the lights and hide. So, and then we have the marvelous and the beautiful. I'm telling you, in the Beauty and the Beast tonight, he's beautiful, isn't he? And that's Rudy. Rudy, thank you, Rudy. The man is the host extraordinaire. You can't ask for a better guy. This guy was James Bond. Probably still is. We don't know. He actually could still be James Bond. But this guy flew high and long and was amazing. When we think of our people out there in the military, well, Rudy was one of those people, and he was there protecting all of us in many different ways. And with great honor, I say thank you for all the wonder you did for us, Rudy.
Thank you.
We appreciate all that you did for them. And then we have Matt Frost right there at the end. Now, Matt, he's the guy who keeps us all running. If we, this whole show would die without him. We would all. He feeds the squirrels and keeps the dragons happy. Now, if we can only figure out how to get him to make Google Plus work, yeah, Matt.
They should hire me.
That's it. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking. That's it. Then we have everything working.
Yeah.
So we'll get a petition going, Matt. Maybe we can get you that job soon.
His slogan is employment is 9/10 of the reason I even care about helping you.
That's good. That's good.
That's it. So I probably took too long, but there we are.
No.
No.
We got a whole hour to fill, And the reason, and I think I forgot to actually say, the reason we're here tonight is editing. And editing, I guess is really a very important thing, especially to a person like me who is not an author. And I've said that 1,000 times now. I'm not an author. I'm a teller of stories. And I don't have to punctuate and spell correctly. That's what we leave up to these two ladies to do. And that, from what I understand, both of them are very good at. So they would put me to shame. That's no doubt about that. And I know Darcy's not here tonight, so the next book that Darcy and I write, I'll make sure that both of these ladies go over it and edit it. And we'll see how many pages come back from the 500 we send in. I mean, isn't that how it's done?
Yeah,
See,
basically
ladies,
they tear the pages right out of
exactly.
it.
It's exactly like John said earlier. My job one time was like a James Bond, and I used to be in all kinds of foreign countries, and I used to write every day a love letter home to my wife. And she actually saved each one of them. And when I came home, she got the box out, and she pulled all the letters out, and she looked at me and she says, "What the hell were you trying to say to me?" Right. And she opened it up, and you know what it looked like? And I mean, really, Katie, you have to excuse me, it looked like Swiss cheese. They cut out every second word, because it was something they didn't want her to know. So the only thing that was there was the, a, in, and you had to think up the rest.
That's right, the censors.
So they were the editors, and that's back in those days already.
So she played Mad Libs while you were gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very good, Jim.
Very good. One for you. So anyhow, let's get started on editing.
Right now? Okay, I'll go get a book. So let me start with Katie in this case. First of all, you are an editor per se, right? Do you accept any book, or do you actually work for somebody?
No, actually, I'm not professionally an editor.
Okay.
As I'm on the Geneva Writers Group Steering Committee,
Okay.
and we put out a literary review every 2 years. With that literary review, we also have the editorial positions in putting that literary review out rotate. They change, and I've done it twice. This is my second time on the editorial committee for Offshoots, which is the name of the literary review. So I do that, and then I write my own stuff, and I'm in critiquing groups, but I'm not professionally an editor. I mean, I'm not out for hire or anything.
You're not out for hire because you haven't been hired, or you don't want to be?
No, I'd rather write. I'd
Okay.
rather hire someone else to edit my stuff. But
Oh, okay, interesting.
Well, I think the idea with this, Rudy, was that she's part of a a large consortium of people who actually can work together to help writers and critique their work, which is an editing process. That's part of the editing process for a lot of writers, is they can take their book to a group of people who will lambast it or tell you how beautiful it is.
Right.
So, they just won't go out and say, well, I didn't even know why you even thought about writing. It was nice you showed up. Bye. But it's that time.
I was going to say, if you read my last blog post, you'd see that one of my early critiquing experiences, a woman said to me, boy, if I wrote like this, I'd kill myself. So, it's not always pleasant. It's not always pleasant.
Okay. So, Jim, I got a quick question for you. How do we get her whole review board into one of these shows? They all have to use one camera?
Now, okay, repeat the question. I'm not sure exactly what you said.
Well, she said she's working with a consortium.
Oh, consortium, right.
A consortium is more than two people.
Well, consortium is usually a merry band of people who like to complain or criticize. That's
like
the only thing they do is, complain or criticize. That's about it.
So how do we get all of them in the room at the same time so we can interview them all the next time?
Well, they could take turns. They have one chair, and they just kind of keep rotating in and out.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Isn't there a Swiss wine, too, so we can have some cheese and wine and... or just chocolate. Maybe it's chocolate. That's
both. Wine, chocolate.
Yes. John, you and I wine enough, so we don't need any whining anymore.
Yeah, we already have that. We don't need more whiners. Come on.
Well, I have a question for Katie.
Go ahead.
This editorial thing we're talking about here, when you have your consortium together in the meetings and so on, how much time do you devote to really strong editing or guidance versus how do you write and develop characters on the positive side? The editing is where you really have to get down to these are the rules and you got to obey some of them no matter what you do. And then there are other rules for character development and telling a story that you really need to apply as well. How much time do you spend on kind of both ends of that spectrum?
Well, let me explain a little bit about the Geneva Writers Group to give an idea. And also about my critiquing group. I am on the steering committee of the Geneva Writers Group, but the woman who is the director, Susan Tabergian, she once a month gives workshops. And those workshops will be on character or on dialogue or on something, an overall view of writing.
Right.
And we do exercises, we read excerpts and that. Then in the afternoon there'll be a critiquing session, and 8 people will go up and read their work, and we critique it. The thing is with that, because we're a large group, there are 210 of us at the moment. Usually there are about 60 of us who meet at a time. The critiquing only goes to a certain extent in those particular meetings. So I am also part of a smaller critiquing group where we can send in to each other like up to 150 pages worth of work. And there, then we rip things apart.
Okay, all right.
Rip things apart. And we do talk about character. I mean, you do have to talk about the story arc because part of editing is not just line edits. It's not only grammar and punctuation. It's also about story arc and plot and character and consistency. And so, I don't know if that answers it.
No, it's the proportion.
That was good.
It's the proportion because some people do only one or the other. They're only good at one or the other or not good at either one. And that's why it's interesting because you have over 200 people all focused on each other and what you're doing.
And you do realize then there's 200 opinions at the end.
Well, we don't all give each other opinions. Oh my gosh, no. No. We meet and we network. We give each other support because as a writer, you definitely need support. I just looked at my sales on Amazon today, and wow, do I need support? But that's what's great about a writers group is that you have people who can give you feedback, and they know how important honest feedback is, because it does no one any good to say, oh, this is great, you're a great writer, when what you're looking for is actually to improve your craft.
Right.
So, yeah, how many editors do you know in Oregon, the United States? One. One. Yeah, there we go. So
Yeah.
what does your wife have to say, John?
Well, what Katie does is really important, and I encourage all authors to do that before they submit it to an editor like me, because I've gotten what I swear are rough drafts, and it's not ready for me. Really, really not ready for an editor at that point. The author really needs to go through revisions. They need to talk to their beta readers. They need to make sure that they've gotten the book as good as they can get it before they send it to an editor.
So in your case, you are the individual who accepts a book for editing, right? And if it's acceptable to you to go ahead and read, which is what you do, and then edit it, it could be anybody's book. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So you're actually for hire in that case.
Yes.
Okay. Do you work? Well, I know you work with your husband on a regular basis.
Yes.
Now, where does he fall in? Does he fall in that category that needs to go back and redo it, or?
Sometimes.
I'm in that same category as Katie in that post she did. That if I wrote like that, I would have died. No. No. So
that's
it's a process of, the idea is it's great to have a group, and I think that reader groups or even beta reader groups and then critique groups are fantastic, and I think they're the greatest part of the idea of online stuff that many writers can do. They can find these groups that help them, but sooner or later you need to go to an editor. You need somebody who's professional, understands it. And as Katie so greatly said, was the idea that an editor isn't somebody who just knows how to make sure you did all your grammar right and you dotted the I's and did the T's, and but it's also what tense are you doing? What what person are you? Is the first person, second person, third person? Are you keeping that in there? Do you have a story that's building? Does it have the arcs? And a lot of editors have to know genres.
Yeah, there are editors who specialize in certain genres. Some people only do young adult. Some people only do mysteries. There's different things to take into consideration.
Okay. All right. Well, the thing is, maybe both of you can give me an answer on this. My book, of course, came through Darcy and myself. I told the story. She did the writing. She basically also did most of the editing. My wife did some editing, because she didn't like some of the way she was portrayed. I guess that's editing, So, but the thing is, I want to publish the book. Right now it's in Kindle format, so I want to publish the book. And the place I'm looking at is Creator Space, I believe it's called. And they have a thing, they tell me that it's edited twice. The first time it's edited for grammar and spelling, and all that, and that's in the price of what you initially pay, because everything else is a la carte. But then it goes to a second editor who looks for story content, for continuity, and etc. Which, in the case of a fiction, I could understand continuity and plots and beginnings and ends. But in the case like I did, where it is historical fiction, you can't, you have a beginning and an end, but you can't develop plots because plots change constantly. There's nothing I could do. Today I was here. Go ahead.
You still have things about continuity. You could be saying that one thing happened in one chapter, and then the next chapter maybe you've got the date slightly off, but when you mention it, there's still things, even in a nonfiction book, that you're still looking for. And with CreateSpace, you're not obligated to use their services.
Right,
you can
correct.
still go out and use somebody else if you want to.
Now, I was just bringing that up because that's what they offered. You know, I have not made up my mind. But you're right. If I was confused in dates and I wrote it that way, because let's face it, by the time we get to be my age, dates don't mean anything. I mean, that was little girls I dated when I was very young. They were dates, you know. and I always believed that history was always also in the eye of the beholder, other than dates and numbers. And when I got to Vietnam, we even changed those, you know. So really, even history as it's written is not really true anymore, you know. But I can understand what you're saying. Yes, so they have to check for that kind of thing. But in the case of a fiction, you want something that is fluent, that isn't chopped up, right?
Exactly.
That's okay.
But the same with the nonfiction. The best nonfictions I've read have a through line, and they have a plot, and they still have a arc. It would be fairly boring if it didn't. I mean, even if you look at somebody like, well, Guy Kawasaki just put out a book called Ape, and a great book about writing. It helps, you know, one is author, P is publisher, and E is entrepreneur.
Right.
And his whole book has arcs through it, and you see that he's writing towards a conclusion because that's what people want. And it's much more easier for somebody to digest information when there's a compelling reason to turn the page. Even if you're giving a history, if it's dry and boring, it's good for a textbook. But if you want people to be interested, you have to make it have a through line and a story.
But see, in my case, and it's the only way I can compare it here, is, you know, I could, my one chapter could be the day we flew over China, okay, and were attacked by surface-to-air missiles. And people would look into that, tell me more, tell me more. Well, you can't, because when that mission is over, it is literally over. And then you sit for 6 weeks and you do nothing. And what happened to me is I got bored. And what I did is I had a friend in Vietnam, so I flew to Vietnam. And I spent time with him in the jungle. And it can't be... In one case, you're high in the sky, in the next place, you're on the ground dodging bullets, you know.
True. That's true. That's true. But even in a recounting of your life, which this sounds like it is, that chapter about your mission over China has an arc of its own.
Okay.
That chapter has that story arc.
Okay.
Whether it's true or fiction.
Okay.
Then the time that you spent in Vietnam with your friend, well, it's a lower key chapter, but it has its own arc.
Okay. Now I understand the arc.
And then you have to make them fit together.
Okay.
So you're not hopping back and forth. So even in a nonfiction, there's an overarching tone of how this story fits together besides the fact that it all happened to you.
Okay.
So that it all fits together in one piece.
Now, you said something earlier, both of you, the fact that I think Jim even brought it up, is find a group that can actually read this and come back with an opinion. Now, the funny thing is, since I have not published my book in a paper format, and my wife goes to church every Sunday, the question she gets hit as soon as she walks through the front door, did your husband publish the book yet? We need it, because the book club has it on their list to read. But they will not buy it from Kindle, you know. So is that a good group to use as an example? Because apparently they do tear some books apart, apparently. You know.
You can.
You can, but do you really want to publish it first? Don't you want them to have like a paper copy of it so that then you can go back and do those changes before you actually publish?
That would be my next question. Is that what should I give them? Is each a manuscript?
You could.
Okay.
Yeah, you could give them each a manuscript in order let them read it before you publish it.
Right.
And get their feedback so that you can rework it. But the other thing to think about, I think, in terms of critiquing, is that you have, I think readers don't always give the same critiques that writers do. And I think it's important to have both kinds of people look at your work. Writers look at things such as story arc or I mean, well, so do readers, but I think we're a lot tougher on other writers than a reader might be, and we might be nitpicky about certain things or word use or adjectives or whatever, whereas a reader might be pulled in terms of just the plot, and they might be better at saying, you know, oh, this plot really carried me from page 1 all the way through here, or, you know, I didn't like this character or whatever. But I think that if you're going to have people read your book, you want to have people that you trust in terms of honesty, that the editing that they give you, they're going to be honest, and that you know that they're readers, and possibly some writers as well. People who actually read that genre and can give you feedback consistent with that.
Well, how much more honest can you get than a church group? Really?
Sometimes people in church are so nice.
Well, yeah, and that's actually good sometimes because, you know, you don't want to be slapped. You don't want to be slapped too much either. Yeah, Darcy asks us a good question, Katie. Do the members of your group read your book in order?
Not always. Not always. In my small critiquing group, I have to say, we meet every 2 weeks, and we send each other our work, and sometimes we read it in order, but sometimes we don't. And that can be confusing if you're only looking for story, but we've worked with each other so much that we really know each other's weaknesses and strengths, and we, you know, I know, for example, that, you know, one woman, the way she likes to overwrite, or somebody knows that I just love the word ache and I use it way too much in my stuff, or you know, someone else has a problem with characterization, and you don't necessarily have to look at something in order to give feedback on it. It helps once you're done. I mean, you definitely need to read it in order once you're done, but I think that it can be done. You can look at things piece by piece.
Does that help in any way to do it that way?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, maybe Toni too. I don't know how you edit, but I think that there are different kinds of ways of looking at something to edit. You can look at the big picture, and then you look at things in smaller chunks, and you look for different things. So it can help to look at something out of context as well.
I agree. If you're looking at the big picture, you're looking at how the whole thing works together, whereas I can also look at scene by scene. Make sure that each scene has its little bits and pieces all in order, and then how it works in context with the whole.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, Dan? You know.
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of what we were just discussing as well, because each scene, you know, we were talking about story arc when you were talking about your book, and each scene actually should, I'm saying this, I don't know that it happens in my novel, but but each scene should theoretically have its own arc. You know, each chapter, each scene, everything. There should be a beginning, middle, end, and there should be something happening. You shouldn't have a page, ideally, in your novel, you shouldn't have a page that you can take out and not make a difference to the story or to the arc. So I think
that's what an editor comes into, because an editor could tell you this chapter isn't working. It's not. It's a great little. You did a wonderful, beautiful job of writing this, but it's not furthering the story. You might need to get rid of it or figure out how to make that work within the story. And that's where a good editor comes in, because a good editor will take a look not just at, you know, the story, but is this working for the climax of the story. There's a major arc, and then of course there's the little arcs.
Okay.
I have an editor question here, kind of a little bit from a different direction. Would either one of the two people that we have here that do editing and critiquing on a serious basis continually through the year, would you look at something by Kurt Vonnegut and decide there's nothing to change, it's perfect? Or would you go, I have to change things because they don't jive for me? And that gets back to the genre. If you don't understand the genre, can you really edit a different genre?
I have to say it's tough. For me personally, I think there's always things you can change in any book. I don't think anything's perfect. I mean, there are things that are very close to perfection, but like my book, of course. But
and mine. No.
Yes. No, but you know, and I look at mine. You know, the day after I publish it, I'm like, oh man. But the thing is, I think that we all can look at, if we look at something with an editorial eye, you can see things that, oh, well, what if he had done this here, or what if she had done that there? And I have to say, there are certain things, like in my small critiquing group, we do not do poetry, for example. I have a very hard time editing poetry, and there were a lot of poets in this literary review that the Geneva Writers Group is putting out, where it's coming out on June 8th. There were quite a few poets, and luckily I'm not the only person on the editorial committee. There were 4 of us on the editorial committee, and one woman was she specialized in poetry. So I do think when you're talking about genre or you know, form, I think you can specialize in that, because yeah, you know, there are things that just don't work for me.
But you know, Katie, he did mention the word Kurt, and I understand that's one of your favorite authors. So he was trying to pick on you on that one. And you got out of that very nicely.
I was trying to pick on Toni, actually, because I'd like to hear if she likes Kurt Vonnegut, would say he needs to change everything.
It's been a long time since I've read any of his stuff. I did like it when I did read it. I'd probably be tempted to pick one up and read it again, and then I'd give you my answer.
Okay.
There you go.
One of my very favorite authors now, Jim Butcher, I just finished his latest, and yes, there are some things I'd edit.
Oh, okay.
So.
But he is very good on camera, by the way.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
He's very good at explaining why he does what he does.
Yes.
So if you can find him, Jim Butcher, out there somewhere on YouTube, he does a really good job of saying, here's how I do it and why, and how I change my mind after a while, and he just goes for it and gives us all this information.
Yes, and I dearly love his books, and I would still edit him.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, so tell me, you brought up the fact of the genre. What did you like most? Which genre would you prefer to receive?
Oh, I like to edit suspense.
Okay.
I mostly get young adult paranormal stuff, which is okay too, but I really enjoy suspense.
So there's a young adult paranormal, and is there an old adult paranormal?
There is adult paranormal, and there is young adult paranormal.
Is it
so, Rudy, there's a whole genre now for you, Rudy. Old adult paranormal.
That's the one that has no sex in it, right?
Right.
Exactly. Okay.
Right. Geritol and you know, and how much money have I saved parking here with the RV instead of over with the RV when they're down and no, that's not. Yeah. So when we talk about editing, and the time comes for you to finally get to that, Katie, when you finally look at your book and you say, okay, I've got it done. I'm ready. Oh God. Okay. Is it, you know, now it's time to hand it over to somebody to go through the damn book and tell you what they think and what they care, and then tell you how it should be written. How do you feel about that from an editor, not from the critique group? You understand the critique group is supposed to slap you in the face a few times, but here you hand it over to an editor, and now, because you want the best product, but have you had any issues with an editor telling you something and you went, no?
No, actually, because this Untethered went through kind of a strange parcours. For some reason, I can only think of the word in French. A strange circuit. Because I was taken on by an agent right away when I sent it to her. She was the first agent I sent the book to. And she said, oh, when it's easy, and this will be easy. And it was far from easy. It was rejected by publishers all over the place. And it wasn't for editing purposes. It was the paranormal bubble had burst, and they didn't know if they could sell it. And so I had gotten some editing from my agent before sending it out to the publishers. My agent and her assistant both looked at it, and they offered editing suggestions. And then finally, when I decided to go the self-publishing route with my agent, they got me in touch with an editor. Who was mostly a copy editor, actually. I mean, he did do a few things in terms of consistency and what have you. But I think all authors are pretty precious in a way. We have a hard time, we really have a hard time hearing, cut out page 300 to 365. But and I rewrote the book 18 times. So, in terms of edits and critiques and that sort of thing, and so I think overall I'm not precious, but I think as an author, I think all of us, that's tough. It is tough to hear that this makes no sense. What the heck are you saying? And this. Your favorite scene that you wrote, and you spent hours and hours writing this scene, and the editor says, there's no reason for this to be in the book, but you say, oh, but I love that scene. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
That's where Stephen King says, that's what you cut. Isn't that awful?
Yeah.
That's the
kill
stuff
your
you cut.
darlings. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're really not that darling. They're only darling to you. And it's hard. Oh, gosh, it's hard. Yeah.
So I have a
Toni,
question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, Darcy brought it up, and her question really is, do you think the changes in the industry have made people less likely to hire an editor? If so, is that hurting the industry, or maybe it's better not to have, editors touching every single thing?
Editor, go ahead.
I have come across, I've read a lot of ebooks, and I have to say that if I find that it needs editing, I don't finish it. And I have a lot of people I know online who feel the same way. A finished book that you pay for should not have errors on every page. I mean, you have certain expectations when you buy a book. You can get away with an error here or there, but they shouldn't be everywhere. And it's really hard to edit your own stuff beyond a certain level because you know what you want it to say, and your brain fills in what you want it to say. I don't edit my own stuff because I can't see the errors. I'm just too close to it.
I think, too, in the industry, I don't know, I mean, just from having guest instructors come to the writers group or agents or publishers coming to our conferences, one thing that I think is a fairly recent phenomenon in the last few years is that it seems like publishers are more interested, I hate to say it, but I think they're more interested in the bottom line and in money than necessarily in really the love of literature. Whereas possibly in the past that was why people went into publishing, was because they love books, and they still do. But I think now there's a lot of with these money is a big deal, and from what I understand, I'm not an expert on it, but from what I understand, a lot of editors are getting less and less work in the big publishing industry, and you know, and then there's a lot of self-published authors out there who don't want to pay for editing or who can't pay for editing, which unfortunately, in my point of view, if there is one thing you are going to do, make sure that you have a clean copy of your novel, because I totally agree with you, Toni, that if I pick up an ebook, and I buy ebooks all the time, and you get through first 3 pages and it's filled with so many errors. No, it's not only frustrating, it's infuriating, because then it puts authors like those authors who have actually really tried to make their product the best that it can be, we're all put in the same bunch with these other authors who aren't. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I can remember from this show, and this is only the 6th show, we had one author on already who, although she was very careful not to really blow too much of the whistle, but in the background we found out that when she sent her book to the editor, he did exactly what you earlier said, and that was you have to get rid of page 100 to 165, and you got to cut this out, and you got to cut that out. And again, it was somebody's life story, you know, and you just, I guess they to keep him happy, they did some of those things, but at the same time, they didn't do it all, you know, because it's got to get infuriating to find that, you know, what you, just like you said, the best part of the book, they tell you to take out because it makes no sense to them. You know. Now, as far as the other thing, I assume what you're saying is if you look at ebooks that still have typos in them, that is, to me, it would be just, in today's age, should never happen, except in the case where I've run across this myself, because my story touches a lot of different states, and it touches a lot of different countries, that sometimes typos are a must. I can remember one word that would come up anytime I would talk about the book, and that was actually left out of the book because of the fact that once we typed it in, it kept trying to change it because it didn't know what it meant. And that was a Southern gentleman saying to my wife, to me actually, now don't you fret none. Okay?
Yeah, but you can turn that off on your...
Yeah, I can. I did do that. But the editor would look at that and say, no, that's got to go. I have no idea what that means.
No. Can I address a couple of these?
Certainly. Certainly.
Especially in a life story, some of those things can be overlooked. I mean, I can understand that some things would have to be left in. It's an autobiography. However, if you're going through things that have no literary interest, no action, no like if you're doing so many details, like, and then I got up and I turned the doorknob, and you know, some of those we know. Okay, you're going to go to the door. We know you're going to turn the doorknob, unless turning that doorknob makes a life-changing thing happen. You know.
Okay. Right.
So something like that, I would recommend that they change.
Okay.
With all my edits, I tell the author, now these are my suggestions. Whether you take my advice or not, I mean, you're paying for my advice. But ultimately, it's your choice whether you take it or not.
Okay.
Okay? Now, and for the last bit about the dialect that person spoke in, that I understand that that's something that would have to be in because that's how that person spoke. Now, if you're writing in an accent, there's a point where it becomes too much and it becomes hard to read. And so I suggest to my clients that they do a suggestion of the accent rather than try and sound out each word the way that they said it, because at that point it can be annoying to the reader and they just tend to gloss over it and they don't really get the flavor of the accent.
Okay. Well, in this case, the accent was only one sentence. I grant you that.
Yeah, one sentence. And the way you said it, I can totally see leaving it in.
Right, right. And if you knew the whole gist of the story, it had to be left in, but it just couldn't come out. Now, the other thing we did is so much of my book was actually German conversations. And we opted to keep the German conversations in there with an English explanation plugged in behind it. Now, is that acceptable to you?
It would depend, but again, what I say is a suggestion.
Oh, absolutely. I understand.
So if there was a reasoning behind it and you opted not to follow my suggestion, well, that's your decision.
And your suggestion would be not to put the German words in there, just make them English right away? What do you think?
Probably. I could see if you do it for a sentence or two, and then if you really wanted to have the German in there, without reading the whole thing, I'm not sure why you would opt to include the whole thing in German, unless you have a lot of German readers.
No, I understand what you're saying. Yes, it was only single sentences that meant something in German. Once translated, they lose a little bit of their meaning, but we still give them the translation. But it took away from the feeling at the moment. You know.
Well, I'd have to tell you, Rudy, it took away from the feeling of the moment from you because you know German. I don't know German, so I wouldn't give a flying leap of what they were saying, unless I saw a German movie. Now, I have seen some German movies,
with
and
subtitles.
You want to see, then you want to see how they reacted when they said it, because it makes more sense. But when I'm reading it on paper, it's just this gobbledygook that I don't understand, and then I'm told later it meant that, the tree over there, though it might mean something to you because you're German. So people who are German speakers, it would mean huge amounts.
Right.
But to the average reader, no.
Then it would depend on who your market is.
Right.
Okay.
No, I understand behind in the bushin'. I know what that means.
Boy, did you just open up a Pandora's box.
I knew you would react to that. Plus, I wanted to interject something because I do have to leave now because I go on to a different hangout show that's all about collectibles and a lot of fun, but I help out over there. Really nice meeting you, Katie, and you're in good hands because these guys will talk for the next 2 hours if you let them.
Katie, I have to tell you, he's going over there to play with the toys.
Yes.
That's what it is. What's the toys tonight, Jim?
I'm not sure what the toys are. I'm a guest panelist, and we're going to jump in. We're going to find out. A couple of weeks ago it was Lego and Star Trek last week, and it'll be something fun tonight. So anyway, nice meeting you. I've got to run and help out on the other show. So glad to get here all the way from Switzerland. This is very cool.
Just one more question for you, Jim, before you leave.
Okay.
When will your show start?
Oh, well, okay. I want you to hold your breath because it won't do any good. The idea is, what I really do is help other people who have shows like you.
Do that on a show. I'm telling you, you could have the audience.
There's too much hard work to do that requires just focus on a computer like what I'm good at doing, and not, being on a show. That would just take time away from what I'm doing for what you and Darcy are putting together, and John and Domingo and so on.
Okay. So
there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff I'm putting together that just takes good, hard time that's not interesting at all. You wouldn't like hearing about it other than Jim's busy working again. That's about where it should stop for you.
We appreciate you working hard.
Oh,
seriously.
Good. Well, hey, you're getting to be famous.
That's right. Look what it did for us already.
Yes. Great.
So
have a good time on the show, guys, and I'll see you next time.
We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. So, we're actually made some good time tonight. Some excellent questions. I'm glad Darcy joined in. The one thing we still have to figure out, John, and maybe you can think about this a little bit, is how other people can write questions in, because Catherine Treat had emailed me earlier to see when can I ask questions, and I thought as soon as we were on air she could, I don't know which ways we'd find them.
It would be through different chat areas. Now, the chat that we have over here right now, well, we won't go into this technical too much, but that's only for us here in in the actual show.
But we got things from Darcy.
Right.
So I was just wondering.
That says Jim. Jim was going to another feed and getting those and bringing those over to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what was going on. So there's different ways. We'll work on that later. It's a great idea, and I understand.
I just want to mention because Catherine did want to ask questions, and unfortunately was not able to. You know,
yeah, that's the hard part is how to get all that in the source and.
And Toni, if I send you my manuscript, are you for hire?
I sure am.
Okay, so then after you edit it, then I can send it on to Katie for her group to kind of really tear it apart, right?
Well, I have to say we're a private group, but
I'm very private.
We'd open it up. We'd open it up for you.
But no, you gave me some good ideas. I think, of course, I'm going to be happy with what's there, but I think we touched on that even, because I think even Toni said she doesn't edit her own stuff. And I guess you, Katie, you did in a way, but then you send it at the end to somebody else to get a second opinion. Is what it really comes all down to, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah,
or a third or a fourth or a fifth opinion.
Right. And then that will bring us on then which is another show, whether to self-publish, whether to go through a publishing house, and it seems like, I did a little research just to show you. My book actually starts from the 1960s to 1982. If I would have written my book in 1982, I would have had competition with approximately 5,000 other books. But I ended up writing my book in 2010, 11, and 12, and published it at the end of 2012. And by the time it was published, there were 552,000 books published the same year.
Yep.
And I think that's where the biggest problem comes in. And you're right. How do we weed out those that are really, really bad, versus those who should get a shot? It makes it tough. That's. I know there are now libraries are putting together some groups that actually look at ebooks and say, well, this one is worth looking at, this one is not. And I think they got a long job ahead of them, because there are so many out there.
Well, that's like book bloggers or reading groups, whatever. But they do. I mean, they provide a service in a sense because they're telling us don't even bother looking at this book because on the first 10 pages you can't even get through it.
Okay.
Part of it though is subjective and but there's a lot of books out there.
Yeah, I think what's got to be remembered though is that as we sit here being critiques and being editors and looking at stuff, that there's still a human soul, a human being attached to every one of those words, and that we might not care for it, but that's, my opinion isn't the opinion of the whole world. Somebody might enjoy that book. So my opinion saying, hey, I would, so we can't put down in oil that that's an awful book. Because it could be that somebody else, I've seen lots of stuff that I thought was a waste of time that people actually like, So
I think everyone has their own opinion, and that's what's at the same time that there are a lot of books out there that that may not be well edited or whatever. There are what I have to say is one great thing about all those 500,000 books that are out there is that the opportunity that self-publishing offers people is awesome, because a lot of people, myself included, would not be published otherwise.
Okay.
And you can find some gems. And everybody can find what they like because there's so much out there. But yeah, you have to.
Well, and you said earlier about if a group of people read a book and really like it, and yet that same book gets sent to an editor, and that editor, who has just an opinion, really, other than actual factual things that don't work for him or her, they may not like the book at all. But in the long run, who's the most important? The audience that's buying it, or the person that's giving you the advice that this is really bad, you got to cut this out? You see what I'm saying? So if we take it to groups to read, and they come back and they're honest, and they're saying, okay, this was confusing, this didn't need to be there, but overall this is not bad, I would definitely buy the book, you know. And if you do it, the book does sell. Where if you went the other way and cut it and cut it and cut it till you have a skeleton of a book, what's your odds then of selling it at that time? Unless you start over again.
But that's where that's the dilemma. That is the dilemma. But in the same sense, everything always rests with the author. It's the author who has the final say.
Okay.
And you know, you have to go with your gut.
Well, if I could add one thing now that I'm back, the other show, due to technical difficulties, will not be seen tonight, so whatever it was, you can't see it no matter how hard you try. But I want to say that when you're talking about it's up to the author, what confuses, I think, this modern era and the industry is it's also up to the author to do just about everything there is to do with this book, and the reason they don't sell well or get anywhere is because they don't know what to do. They've written maybe an outstanding undersea adventure, but they don't know where to talk to anybody or how to get it out there. So it just, they says, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, and I'm writing another book I like now because this one is, I put so much work into this, I'm tired of it, but I like my new one. So here's all this stuff they have to juggle. So is your consortium sensitive to that, or you just say, well, it's the way it goes?
Well, I think it's extremely difficult, and I mean, you know, I haven't been at the self-publishing thing long, but hats off to everyone who's doing it and who's doing it successfully, because it's extremely difficult to get known. You know, to get exposure already helps a little bit, but then, you know, you can have a great book, but like you said, maybe nobody knows it's there. So I think it's extremely difficult, and I know that in my writers group, everyone has had a different experience. You know, all of us have had different experiences. But one thing of the life of a writer is rejection.
Right.
Rejection.
Well, I have to say that if you had white headphones on, you could be Darcy tonight.
She could.
Yes.
The one thing I want to put down on the table, though, is interesting from Guy Kawasaki when he was writing his last book, was that he has a huge following on the net, and he used that to go through his book, and that was a huge amount of people. Then he whittled that down to 200 who looked through his book again, and then he whittled it down to 79 people who went through and really looked at his book, and then he and his co-author Sean Welch also went through it and looked at it, and then they decided, okay, I think we got this book pretty well done. We're really ready to happen. Let's just give this to a professional editor, just to, you know, so we did it. So they handed it over to a professional editor, and they got it back, and that professional editor found 1,500. That's 1,500 all kinds of errors that needed to be done, needed to be fixed, rewritten, redesigned. And he said this, you know, he goes, I thought we had it. I thought it was ready. I had gone through 3,000 people, and suddenly we didn't see it. And what I got out of that was, yes, many eyes do not mean that's the right ones. What you need is the right eyes to look at the book. And that's the thing that we forget. I have a lot of people who read, and I know a person who has an English degree. Doesn't mean they're an editor. Doesn't mean they know about editing. You need a professional editor to look at your book, because you need the right eyes to see it. You need the right eyes to know what you're trying to do. That's what's important. An editor doesn't change your story. An editor doesn't go through and tell you, oh, well, you got to cut out 300 pages because this doesn't work. An editor can suggest things, and an editor can make your work wonderful. They can make your work so that the picture that you're trying to paint with words comes across. That's what they're there for, to help you get the best story out of you. It's not my wife's book story. She doesn't want your story. She has her own stories. What she wants to help you do is get the best book you can have. That's what's important.
Well spoken. Well, that's the gist of the whole thing. Yes, yes. So I see our time is just about up. So in closing, again, I want to remind everybody that we're part of the Hangout10.com network. That's Hangout10, the numeral 10.com. And if you get a chance, stop there, look at the calendar, see the other good shows they have. But most of all, highlight where it says SlushHeap every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And come on back here, and each week for 13 weeks, just like your television stories, for 13 weeks we bring you the best. And then we take 13 weeks off with the money we made here, and we go on vacation. And then hopefully after that we'll be back for another 13 weeks going into a little more detail. And, I said I promised to be a little different tonight when I close this show. And so I wanted to tell a little story. It's not going to take long.
Could I ask a question just before you do that, Rudy?
Certainly.
How does somebody contact Katie on the internet if they want to do that?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
There you go.
I've got a Twitter feed. I've got a website. I've got a Facebook page.
Just give us one of them.
At Katie Hayoz on Twitter. KATIEHAYOZ. So.
And her blog is, yeah, go ahead and do it again,
My blog is www.katiehayoz.com.
And it's a great blog.
And did you get the Hayoz? How that's spelled?
It's Hayoz.
There you go.
It's a Swiss name.
Swiss name. Yes.
Okay. Very good.
And Toni, you can find her at rakestrawbookdesign.com. That's rakestrawbookdesign.com.
Just
you
like
might be
that
hearing
lower...
from me, Toni.
Just like hello. That's right. And also, people, share us. Always share us. We all love to be shared.
That's the bottom line. Yes.
And Rudy, I want to hear your story, but go ahead, Katie.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say one last thing before we go, because you had said before, I think one great thing about this kind of hangout or an indie author is that everyone supports each other, and I think that makes all the difference. That's all.
And it's not by borders. We don't have to be in the same country. We can do this. Switzerland. We can do this from Saudi Arabia. It's beautiful. There are no borders online.
Sunday, when I was on your show, you had somebody from Austria.
Yeah.
You had somebody from Arizona, and then there was the guy from Delaware that came on late.
Yeah, that guy.
And the guy from Florida took off.
He took off. Yes, didn't show up at all.
I said, there's Rudy.
He was leaving.
Right.
Rudy showed up and Jim just left. No.
Yeah, so the guy.
Exactly.
Rudy, I want to hear your story.
Okay.
I want to dazzle me.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Some years ago, when I was a lot younger, I watched a lot more television. Nowadays, the television is just something to go to sleep to, And one of my favorite spots happened at the end of each 60 Minutes episode. You remember 60 Minutes, don't you? And it was called A Few Minutes with Andy Rooney. You remember him? Well, his anecdotes always contained a little humor and a lot of truth. And I don't mean to compare myself to Mr. Rooney, but looking at SlushHeap's shows tells me that in a way we're a diamond in the rough. And what you have to do is give us a little time, and someday we will shine. We really will. But to shine or to sparkle, we have to require the same thing, and that is a little different word, and that is trust. From a very young age on, my Oma, which is my grandmother, for those who didn't speak German, okay, my stepfather, and then finally the armed forces, well, wait a minute, the armed forces always lied to me, but told me that I always had to tell the truth. It was important to really always, in order to be trusted, you had to tell the truth. And what I'm comparing here, that what we're doing within this show is we're bringing out the truth of how to publish a book the best all of our people that come in on as guests can tell us. And I think tonight, I know I learned a lot, and I hope the people that are watching have learned a lot. And each week, if we can do that, then the truth that we tell and the trust they give to us will make them better authors in the long run. And that's what our goal is. You know, for someday to have somebody that watched this show publish a book, some 18-year-old right now watched us, and in 10 years publishes a book that's a bestseller, you know what? We can say we knew him when. And that's the only thank you need. You know, we don't need anything else. And I think that was my thought for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. That was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is
So
fantastic.
with that, I want to thank our guests. You know, again, like without you, this show is nothing. And, you know, certainly, Toni, thank you for being on tonight. And you will receive my manuscript.
Awesome.
You know. It'll come in a huge box to make you think it's about the size of Hawaii, you know. And,
I know you have a computer file. You have an ebook.
oh, you had to do that. Okay. I'll say, how would you like to have it, in PDF format or in Word?
Word.
Word.
Gotcha.
Word.
And Katie, you know, I won't send you the same thing until after we correct it. You know.
I want
But
to
you're
know
gonna
what
hear
the
from
shipping
more
is
often.
to Switzerland for a big
Oh,
box.
yeah, it's
No.
expensive.
If she don't mind, I'm going to personally deliver it.
Ooh.
You know.
Can I go
That'll
with
be
you?
one of my holidays, you know. So, and I know about, I could talk my wife into that in 2 seconds, that we were going to go to Switzerland,
Yeah.
you know, because she loves that area. I took her a year ago to Austria and Germany, and we were supposed to go to Switzerland, but our car, believe it or not, our rental car was not registered for Switzerland, so we couldn't get in. I mean, can you imagine? That's like, you know, my car from Delaware can't get into Washington. You know,
That doesn't surprise me.
no, it does not. They never told me about this. We wanted to go to Switzerland and Italy. We couldn't get into either one of them. And then I didn't know that when I left Germany, my sticker had expired, and I got stopped at the Austrian border and had to buy another one on a rental car. So, you know, you're in a nice country, Katie, but I'm not sure that European Union is not what the USA is all about.
Yeah.
Well, Switzerland is not in the European Union, which
No,
might
it's not.
be yeah.
Well, that's
probably
because the European Union would want an accounting of where all the money's going. You know?
Yeah. No, the Swiss are very cautious.
Good.
So.
Yeah, right. I mean, I love them. I really love them. You know, look, they do some very good things in the fact that they never started the war, which I can't, as a German, can't quite deny. We never finished one. We just quit for a while. You know, but you know, so no, the Swiss are very nice people, and I would thank you for having you for being on our show tonight. And Toni, thank you for taking time out with us. I hope we answered all your questions about this show, and I hope they're all good. You know, because I think we talk more than our guests do sometimes. That's because John and I in the same room is you know, it's like an army.
It is.
So, well, thank you again for being with us, Jim. As usual, it's been a great pleasure to have you tonight. Like I said, we will have a couple of questions for you that we just asked earlier, and maybe we can do it off the air. You know, maybe you can explain to us how we do this. Matt, as usual, things were pretty quiet tonight. You didn't have to mute anybody. No. I think that's a first.
Went really well.
So all the dogs were tied up, and all
Phones
the
were off. Yeah.
my wife, I put a tape on her across her mouth, and closed it right tight. Wait till I get out there now and really catch it, you know.
Yeah.
But you know what? She put up with me for, what the heck has it been now? 42 years, you know. So
that woman's a saint. That woman's a saint.
Yes. Unfortunately, our religion doesn't allow saints. So,
well, I want to thank you too, Rudy. Thank you so much for a wonderful show. Thank you.
Thank you for helping out. That I greatly appreciate that. So, with that, good night, And hopefully we'll see you again for another show. We'll find something else you can that you can join us on, you know. Or like I said, the second set of 13 weeks when we go a little deeper into things, because we'll be more educated with better questions, you know. So hopefully we'll see you then again. Thank you and good night.